Everything stopped at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
More people watched Dad and Mick's fight than watched the cup final that followed it.
We used to knock crap out of each other.
Daddy was the biggest name Great Britain ever produced.
On the 20th of June 1981, it is claimed 18 million people tuned in to ITV's World of Sport to watch what had been billed as the final showdown between two of British wrestling's biggest stars. Big Daddy defeated Giant Haystacks via knockout after only 2 minutes and 50 seconds. It was clear the bout had been more about spectacle than in-ring prowess.
Shirley had 2 moves. One of them was terrible. At least Luke was a monster and looked a monster, but Shirley, it's just ridiculous. All that belly button stuff. It turned it into a kid show, absolute kid show.
Daddy and Haystacks in the day did a lot for our business. The difference with Haystacks and Big Daddy was they were just massive men who did their kind of thing and entertained. Don't get me wrong, they entertained, and they were so big that they made the audience go wow. And that they had the wow factor, if you like, not necessarily the wrestling factor.
The problem with the way Daddy was pushed as the single big star is that it didn't work for the kind of place where you were trying to come back every week or every month and kind of build long-term storylines. The only places that he tended to appear very regularly were the seaside towns where it was a different audience every month. And during his time as the top star, a lot of the regular venues ran down their schedules and eventually stopped completely while he was on top.
In 1985, ITV moved to revamp its sports coverage, and World of Sport was cancelled.
The product was stale. Greg Dyke come in and wanted a sort of yuppie image and took the World of Sport programme that was on that Saturday afternoon away. But there was such an outburst from the wrestling fans that they had to keep it on.
It had a standalone slot after World of Sport itself was cancelled, but the TV slot was moved from sort of time to time, so it became more of a kind of a chore to have to work out when it was on.
From 4 o'clock every Saturday afternoon, it would be changed to 1 o'clock, to 2:30. Next Saturday it wouldn't be on at all.
This was also the same time some of the TV slots were given over to All Star Promotions, the main sort of independent group.
Because there was such a big difference in the shows that they've been used to with Max Crabtree and Joint Promotions, we were sort of looked upon as being something a bit special.
All the shows really that Brian put on in that short space of time stood out and was trying to move the job forward.
And several times a year you'd have the WWF programming from America.
The Americans were putting on these big fellas who were like punching and had this sort of new style.
To younger fans, it looked much more exciting, fast-paced, much more action, more aggression, just more general mayhem going on.
In 1988, ITV secured a lucrative 4-year contract to broadcast top-flight football. To make way for this new acquisition, and believing the genre to be passé, ITV Sport chairman Greg Dyke took the decision to axe British professional wrestling.
He just ruined our business. Our business would have been far, far bigger than the American wrestling's ever been, I think. Because our lads were, and the lads that were in the business in our day, was as good as anything you'll ever see. Once I got to that platform, once I was there, for them to just go like that, I don't really talk about the actual feelings that I had. It was heartbreaking.
It came off for me for all the wrong reasons, and we can get into hour-long debates about why it came off, how it came off. But for me, it came off because of one person, and it came off because they preferred football to wrestling, And for me, that was a very bad decision, because that was one person making a decision on behalf of millions of TV viewers.
After the loss of ITV, a number of wrestlers still found televised work with Welsh wrestler and promoter Orig Williams. With an annual series running on Welsh language channel S4C, Williams sought to modernise professional wrestling by introducing a variety of new match types to Welsh audiences. Surprisingly, however, despite the lack of televised wrestling across the rest of the UK, promoters enjoyed a surge in live attendances.
Williams probably had 2 good years after it come off, because people still wanted to see it and would go to the shows where they might not have gone to the shows before. But then all of a sudden, there was no sort of fresh names being made. So they'd seen Nagasaki, they'd seen Rocco, they'd seen Finlay. So there was nothing new coming on.
And the shows weren't maybe having the investment they should have had, the glamour, and people were expecting more from their entertainment.
The amount of people coming to watch us lessened because it was off television, so the stars weren't there anymore, and people actually thought we'd all finished. It was only the hardcore of people that used to go to the shows that actually carried on going.
In 1993, the struggling British pro wrestling scene was portrayed in a BBC documentary series, Video Diaries, and featured Robbie Brookside.
Brian Dixon came up to me and said, "This is Bob Talbot. He works for BBC. He wants you to do a documentary." So, okay, yeah, it sounds. And he sat me down, he said, "We've got this camera here, I want you to take it away. And we want you to film everything you do. It's not just about wrestling, it's about you." At the time, Doc Dean, we were tag team partners, and we filmed for the best part of a year. And we had 284 hours worth of material for a 1 hour documentary. And it was an incredible experience. But they gave us the same night as Chris Eubank and Nigel Bernard, the last ever territorial live from Old Trafford, unmissable. And on BBC Two, we got some wrestlers doing the Video Diaries.
I thought, well, I'll watch that and I'll record Video Diaries. But I remember I kept channel flicking back to Video Diaries because I found it so gripping. And I've probably watched it about 25, 30 times.
I took a lot of shit for it within this dressing room, off the old brigade.
I didn't realise that the show was going to go out. I thought he was having a laugh and just taking some photos of the lads, you know, because we were going on this trip away. But unknown to me, I didn't think it was going to go around the UK.
The one thing I did with it was keep the job in the right way. There was never anything untoward. And even now when I watch it, I'm proud. But most of all, nowadays, wrestlers come up to me and go, "That's the best documentary that we've ever saw about wrestling."
I think he looked at it, and a lot of us looked at it, that appeared on it, as maybe a forerunner for it to get back to what it was.
We're crying out for help. You know, please help us. You know, look at what we're doing, look at how we're doing it, and look what we're getting back.
Looking back at it, and I've watched it again on YouTube, and it was like a cry for help. It was like he was like saying, "Listen, save this business. It needs to be saved."
What Robbie did, and what he's always done, is he threw up a flare to the next generation and said, "This is an option." And some of us turned around and we saw that flare, and that's how we got into it. So for him to do that was a massive thing for the next generation of British wrestlers.
Wrestling in England is completely gone.
Probably the worst time ever.
We're going to run a show, the biggest British wrestling show of all time.
That was really the start of when people started to take notice again.